Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all the witnesses here this late afternoon for your testimony. It was excellent testimony. Mr. Webb, I'd like to start with you, please, sir. And I'm just for curiosity, I understand you're the lead safety auditor. That's what I have in my notes here. I'm just wondering, is that a certain province or a certain location, or is that across the country?
I do audits on trucking companies in Ontario and Alberta.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Webb, in my riding of Essex, just last week, I learned of a tractor-trailer colliding with a crash truck on Highway 401 eastbound of LaSalle, which is a community in my riding. The semi-driver who rammed into the other vehicle was unharmed and charged with careless driving, while the driver of the crash truck, who was working to protect our workers, ended up in hospital. This is just one of many examples of unsafe trucking practices that years of Liberal neglect have allowed to happen through weak enforcement. As an auditor, could you outline the most common safety deficiencies you've observed among truck drivers during inspections and how these failures relate to compliance with National Safety Code standards?
So majority of the things that I do see in the market today is fatigue. So drivers are being pushed in the market, and that is probably the number one. The second one would be distracted driving. Cell phones is the biggest one, or iPads or whatever objects they have in the cab. But also with that, I find one of the biggest things is that these drivers just don't know. They just don't know where they're going. Their training, once they get into the carrier, is not significant enough in a lot of cases, is what I see. It's there under the National Safety Code, what they have to follow. But every carrier, included the companies I've worked for, we do everything in our power to get the driver in the truck, but we forget once they're in the truck, the extra training that they do need and document that stuff. And that's the stuff we have to work on.
With you, sir, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Webb. So I've heard from many constituents in my riding who are afraid for their own safety on the roads. One fleet manager in my riding wrote to me saying, and I quote, "The safety of our community is at risk. Windsor-Essex relies highly on the transportation industry. With the new Gordie Howe International Bridge about to open, there's great fear for our industry and the law-abiding companies, citizens, taxpayers, and families our local transportation industry contributes to." Earlier in this study, we heard from a witness from the Atlantic Provinces Trucking Association that National Safety Code auditors through the CCMTA should work closely with law enforcement and ESDC auditors to conduct more roadside blitzes and focus on the roadside enforcement on this issue. Could you speak to how gaps in NSC enforcement are allowing unsafe truck driving methods to remain on our roads?
Yeah, so from what I see is between the National Safety Code, being the differences in the provinces is one of our biggest problems is we don't share that information. So an auditor from Alberta doesn't know what MTO is doing in Quebec, or sorry, in Ontario. We don't know what's happening in Nova Scotia. So that lack of general information going across the provinces becomes an issue. I'm in agreement. I think more standardization of that information shared between provinces and jurisdictions, regardless if it's a federal employee or provincial employee or a contractor, I think all that information should be shared. And that also equates into making sure that the insurance companies are also sharing their information as well, because that'll give us a better base of what is actually going on.
For you, sir. In your experience as a safety auditor, I wondered if you had any recommendations to this committee for how there can be stronger enforcement of NSC, or how the NSC standards should amend to ensure that Canadians no longer pay the price on the roads because of unsafe trucking practices. And if you could answer in 1 minute or less, please, I would appreciate it.
I think the standardization is going to be the biggest thing. I think for people like myself that go in and look at these carriers, is educating the carrier themselves is the biggest problem. As I said in my statements, owners just don't know what they have to follow. We as a country, when somebody starts a trucking company, all we give them is, hey, you got to get a CVOR or a safety fitness certificate. There's no follow-up. There's NCCR audits or ARC audits afterwards, but there's no follow-up with the owners themselves. So every trucking company has an issue. It starts at the top and works down. And if we can't tackle those owners, we're going to have issues.